Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today we will discuss the ancient secret of mental alchemy. We have a series so far on the podcast designed around Rosicrucian teachings that I call the ancient secrets. Many of these principles and ideas come from deep occult study that in many cases is thousands and thousands of years old. The amazing thing about Rosicrucian teachings is they are based upon very, very old writings on metaphysics and mystical involvement with what they referred to as the cosmic. I received pamphlets when I was younger on a regular basis, and these had some amazing breathing techniques and other techniques that I could use in aligning my body and other teachings that I found to be very, very transformational. We are talking today about the very core of reality creation, and that is mental alchemy, the alchemical process of concentrating upon a dream or hope and building it into a realization. This comes from the book Rosicrucian Principles for the Home and Business, which H. Spencer Lewis discusses many different business principles, and we've covered some of these teachings in the Law of Compensation episode, as well as the episode on Ancient Secrets for the Attainment of Wealth. I cover two powerful chapters, the cosmic and you, and mental alchemy. There are two universal ideas connected with the practical application of psychology and metaphysics in the West that are generally associated with affirmations and with conscious or subconscious ideas held by those who are seeking the blessings of the cosmic. One of the ideas is that each one of us is at one with God, or a child of God's perfect manifestation. The other idea is that the abundant supply of the cosmos is at our disposal, or the blessings of God are mine. With both or either of these ideas as a fundamental belief, it is natural for us to feel that suffering and pain, disease and ill health, poverty, or the lack of necessities in life are not only essentially wrong, but due entirely to some trick of the mortal mind or some lack of realization of divine or cosmic contact. If it were true that ill health and suffering or disease were the result of some mental trick of the mortal mind, or some aberration of the mortal mind's memory of its divine attunement, then we would be justified in believing that it would be necessary only to untrick the mind, or to establish a conscious realization of divine attunement, in order to cleanse the body or the consciousness of all suffering, disease, and pain. In other words, if all pain and suffering were the result of some false reasoning on the part of the mind, and both the cause and the manifestation of disease and pain were the reactions of a false belief within the mortal mind alone, then it would be logical to conclude that the cleansing of the mind's conceptions and the repeated affirmation that disease and pain do not exist would alter the conditions and leave one free from all suffering. Such is not the case. Fortunately, I say fortunately, even though on the face of the matter, it seems that it would be a very fortunate thing if all disease and suffering were the result of mere mistaken beliefs in the mortal mind, for that would seemingly leave healing and health easily attainable. But it is fortunate that such is not the case, for that would eventually demonstrate the superiority of the dominion of mortal mind over human will, or over the fundamental and natural laws of the universe. And that cannot be, for humanity is ever and anon subject to natural laws and spiritual laws, all of which are laws of God. We cannot change, regulate, or modify, least of all negate and set aside any of the natural laws or any of the spiritual laws. We must abide by them. But we have the will, and with it the privilege and power of using natural law and spiritual law to regulate our lives. We must abide by these laws and either cooperate with them or run counter to them. Nevertheless, we are ever affected by them, and our hope and salvation from disease, pain, and suffering, poverty, and discomfort lie in cooperating with natural and spiritual laws and applying them to our own advancement and perfection rather than running counter to them. Disease and suffering, poverty and discomfort are invariably the result of the violation of natural or spiritual laws. The sufferer or the victim of circumstances may not always be the one who has violated the law, for it is true that unto the third and fourth generation will the law make itself manifest. But regardless of the cause, and regardless of who violated the laws, the sufferer therefrom and the victim thereof has it within his or her power to adjust the conditions by directing, in his or her behalf, the operation of other natural and spiritual laws, and living in harmony with them. It is perfectly true that as human beings we are the highest expression of God's creation. It is also true that being created in God's spiritual image, we are children of divine consciousness and an intimate part of God's own being. Therefore, it is more than a mere logical conclusion that we are children of love, perfectly created and having within us the creative powers and the essential goodness and divinity of God's own consciousness. But this alone is not sufficient to prevent the development of disease within our bodies or to keep us continually healthy and happy, regardless of our own voluntary actions and our methods of living and thinking. We may create a perfect piece of machinery, and if it is misused or if it is neglected or damaged, it will cease to be the perfect thing it was or could be. It is useless to argue the point as to whether God also created evil and disease, suffering, pain, and poverty as the opposites of all that is good. The fact is that such things do exist, and what we should be concerned with in any practical study of metaphysics or ontology is the cause of their existence in our own affairs, in our own environments, or within our own bodies. Regardless of whether God created the dark night as well as the bright day, we know that the night is caused by the absence of light, and we know likewise that light will dispel darkness. We know these things because they are demonstrations of natural law and spiritual law, and we have come to realize that to affirm in the darkness that there is no darkness results in no coming forth of light. Mystics may have their own symbolical interpretation of light and metaphysical understanding of darkness, but such mystics do not allow their symbolical light to become a material thing, nor their metaphysical darkness to become such an equivocal thing that in the midst of actual darkness they would affirm the existence of light while denying the existence of its opposite. Mystics know that there is but one thing that will dispel darkness, and that is light. And they know that there is but one thing that will affirm the light, and that is the actual light itself. So it is that a practical mystic trained in the Rosicrucian principles is aware of the fact that all disease and suffering have resulted from the violations of natural laws or the failure to abide by natural laws through a voluntary disobedience of their authority. To return to the familiar toothache, we may say that the tooth aches because of some cause within the tooth. The cause is a diseased condition of the tooth, or the gums surrounding the tooth. This diseased condition is a result of the violation of some law of nature. The violation was not a metaphysical one, a mystical one, nor a mere trick of the mortal mind in believing that it had violated some law. It is difficult for people to imagine that which they have never experienced nor realized. The mind that has never realized the agony of a toothache cannot conceive or imagine it, and produce through its imagination a synthetic demonstration. The mortal mind can be conscious of a toothache only through having the experience. The mortal mind may give a false importance to the toothache, or may attribute to it a mistaken sense of authority, and may even credit the toothache with the right to enslave its victim. But it cannot create that toothache, nor can it negate it out of existence. The ache is a pain, and pain is the result of a cause, and the mortal mind cannot create the cause, nor can it remove the cause. As we have said in the previous chapter, the Eastern mystics have used affirmations and their willpower to prevent the mortal mind from giving undue power and authority to the ache or its ability to enslave them. They have learned how to negate the mortal mind's acceptance of a false belief in the power of pain to enslave them. but they never misapplied their correct understanding of the use of such a negative affirmation to the imbecilic practice of positively affirming the non-existence of the pain itself. As Rosicrucians and practical mystics, with our feet firmly on the ground during our earthly existence, and ever conscious of the material laws as well as the spiritual laws, we use our will in directing the natural creative forces within the body and throughout the universe to remove the cause of pain and to cure the toothache by curing the condition that resulted from the violation of some natural law. As we have intimated, this is practical mysticism. It is reasonable, rational, and sound in every way. It neither denies the existence of God and God's means and methods, nor does it aggrandize the material part of a human being and make that superior to the spiritual part of our being. An abundant supply does exist, not only in the cosmic, but throughout all of nature. God has provided bountifully for all the needs and most of the luxuries required or desired by every human being. These constitute the rich blessings that God promises all creatures and which God has so beautifully provided throughout all the ages. Whatever is lacking in your life, whatever may be wanting among your needs, exists for you to possess, to have, and to hold, so long as you use it appropriately. What you lack is not in your possession or at your disposal because you have not attuned yourself to it or have not attracted it to yourself. Affirming that you have it when you do not have it will not attract or manifest it, nor will the belief that since you do not have it, you cannot have it affect the fact that you still may have it if you earn it, deserve it, or attract it and bring it into your consciousness. All things that we may require are ours, essentially and potentially, but they may not be ours actually, because of some principle, some law exercised by us or denied by us, which withholds the realization of the things that we lack. To affirm, therefore, that since we are perfectly created and perfect in the image of God, we shall have no disease regardless of how we think, live, or act, is as inconsistent as saying that regardless of the fact that it is the middle of the night, and by natural and divine law the sun does not shine, the sun is still shining because we have affirmed that the sun exists and the darkness is not, and to affirm that because there is an abundant supply for all, and essentially every blessing and bounty of God is at our disposal, we therefore have everything and lack nothing, while at the time we are objectively conscious of our needs, is simply proclaiming a falsehood and hoping that our own predicament will be magically transformed by a formula that is as unscientific and unsound metaphysically as anything can be. Therefore, in a practical way, I shall attempt to show you how we may attract and bring into our existence the things we lack, and which our divine perfection and our abundant supply have established for us. Mental alchemy. One of the most popular beliefs in the Western world regarding the application of psychological principles to our everyday affairs is in connection with the so-called art of concentration. It is generally believed by those who have heard public lectures propound the simplest aspects of psychology that through concentration upon a specific need, some magical processes are set into motion that bring into materialization the thing desired. It matters little what the thing may be, or when, or how we concentrate upon it. For according to the various lecturers and teachers of this art, there are as many methods as there are teachers who offer their personal instruction. One public lecturer, renowned for her years of devotion to the expounding of the simple formulas of psychological magic, frankly admits that after investigating her own private formula for many years and examining the reports of her thousands of paying students, she can guarantee her concentration method to be 65% efficient. It would seem that there is any psychological, metaphysical, or mystical law involved in the art of concentration. 100% efficiency should be guaranteed as the standard. 35% admittedly fail according to this one lecturer. My own investigations and the reports I have received from perhaps 50,000 persons who have tried all of the personally discovered and unique systems of concentration taught in the self-help classes conducted by these itinerant teachers have shown that 10% of the tests of such methods produce results that may be attributed to the practice. Yet it cannot be denied that there is an art to concentrating, and that this art can be used to bring into our lives the things we desire or need. There is a method known to the Rosicrucians that is easily guaranteed to be 100% efficient. If used as directed, I will address this later. The point I wish to make is that there is nothing wrong with the principle of concentration, but often it is employed incorrectly by those who foster in the minds of the public the false belief that it is a simple process, requiring no other consideration than to concentrate, wish for something, and desire to turn the wish into materialization. It is an easily demonstrable fact that of the many things we need in our lives, or wish for the most, those things upon which we concentrate our attention and our thoughts most continuously and sincerely are likely to be brought into realization. It would be trite to say that through concentration upon a desire, we tend to bring it into realization, but the fact remains that there is a considerable difference between centering our conscious thoughts upon our great desire and keeping it foremost in our consciousness, and the so-called secret methods of concentrating on each and every little thing that appears upon the perspective horizon as a necessity or a desirability. Undoubtedly, we are more apt to bring into our lives that thing or condition to which we devote most of our attention or to which we give the utmost thought. When we become obsessed with a wish, a hope, or a desire to such an extent that it blots out all other temptations and puts far into the background all other seeming needs or wants, we are very likely to make every one of our acts contribute toward the fulfillment or realization of the wish, and to expand every possible effort as a contributing factor in its materialization. I have found through conversations with hundreds of people who have discussed their goals and desires with me that for the most of these individuals there has been an entire absence of true concentration effectively applied in the proper manner toward the object or goal desired. Let me illustrate my point with a typical example. A young woman was employed for several years in the business office of a major building supply company here in the West. Her parents, successful business professionals, desired that she follow them into the business world. However, their daughter was not interested in that path. She dreamed of someday becoming an architect. Her parents agreed that this was indeed a noble profession and ambition, and they had offered to pay her way through university so that she could complete the course in architectural design and become an architect. However, the young woman refused their offer, insisting that she would not have her education paid for nor accept any further money from her parents, but would find her own way in life. I believe that this independent attitude on the part of the young woman actually impressed her mother and father, but the problem remained. How was she to become an architect? The young woman admitted that she had held this desire to become an architect for many years. She said it was her dream and her hope to one day become an architect and design beautiful buildings. She had always heard that if one held fast to a belief, a hope, or an ambition, or had maintained that wish steadfastly for a number of years, that it would lead that seeker on some path toward the desired goal. Yet, here she was, doing the same work in the same way day after day with no indication that her great dream was to be fulfilled. When I asked her if she had concentrated upon this great hope or dream, she enthusiastically replied that it was the main thing she thought about all the time. She said that she had no other particular ambition and had laid aside other interests to focus her energy on this great hope. However, my careful questioning of her revealed that her idea of concentration was much like someone who sits on a park bench and gazes across the lawn towards a beautiful home and wishes that he or she could possess such a home, live in the home, be inside enjoying a wonderful meal in the posh dining room while approaching the warmth and comfort of the fireplace, and the dreamer wishes and wishes and wishes some more. At the time, the wishes and desires seem so real as the dreamer concentrates on attaining the comforts of life that others seem to enjoy. But can one say that such intermittent wishing or the holding of a consistent desire really constitutes the art of concentration? The young woman admitted that in the building supply office where she worked, she often met professionals in the building industry who came there to secure blueprints or to discuss their plans with the company managers. Through her work, she was constantly brought into contact with architects, builders, and contractors, and through working with these professionals, she had become somewhat familiar with the process of designing and constructing buildings. She had witnessed many conversations about the intricate problems and challenges of architecture and building, and it was all very fascinating to her. However, careful questioning revealed that she had not concentrated enough on her wonderful dream of becoming an architect to make the dream a true passion. The dream had not become so dominating a factor in her thinking and acting as to have led her into conversation with architects so that she could find out how she might actually become a student of architecture. In her desire to become an architect, the young woman had not even considered the possibility of visiting architects in their offices and observing them at work, nor had she been urged by her dream or hope to borrow any of their books about the art of architecture. She had not even told anyone except her parents and one or two friends about her great desire to pursue architecture. Even her employer at the building supply company did not know about her desire to become an architect, nor did the drafters and designers associated with the company have any idea that this young person was eager to take up the study of architecture and thereby become a valuable aid to the company for which she was working. Concentration indeed. There is a considerable difference between concentrating upon a dream or hope and concentrating upon building that dream into realization. Had this young person been truly concentrating on building her dream into realization, she would have talked architecture, thought architecture, and acted architecture every waking moment of her life. She could not have been kept away from the presence of architects, nor away from the building plans, drawing boards, and bookshelves of architects' offices and designer studios. Real concentration on her great hope would have led her within a short time to trying her hand at creating plans and drawings, and undoubtedly she would have become acquainted with those who would have advised her, helped her, and mentored her, even while holding her regular job and earning an income. And her employers declared later that they would have gladly apprenticed her to work in the drafting studio in her spare hours to learn some of the practical and fundamental lessons of the first stage of creative planning and building. To summarize, if this young person had devoted all of her energy and concentration to becoming an architect instead of just dreaming about being an architect, there is no doubt in my mind that she would have succeeded in receiving all the educational experience and encouragement necessary for her to be successful in her career, and thus she would have fulfilled her aspiration in life to become an architect and design beautiful buildings. In another example, a young man 19 years of age took a job working in a photographic studio, doing ordinary work for average wages. He had always been fascinated with photography and loved to photograph nature scenes, but he had never had any formal training in this skill. Nevertheless, his interest in the art of photography helped him immensely in his new job, and he looked forward to learning all he could about the basics of professional photography. It wasn't long before this young fellow realized that his job had opened a whole new dimension in his life. One day he had occasion to see some special photographic work brought to the studio for duplication, and its very nature, beauty, and rareness attracted his attention, for he had never before seen such superb nature photographs. He had found out that the pictures brought into the studio for duplication were the result of a little-known process used almost in secret by only a few master photographers who had learned the art abroad and were capable not only of creating the most attractive and beautiful reproductions of nature, but of earning a good income and enjoying a good standard of living as they pursued their profession. The young man became obsessed with the desire to learn this unusual art and decided to devote himself to this goal. The idea, the hope, and ambition came into birth almost spontaneously as he listened to his employer's fascinating story of rareness, beauty, and profits connected with this unusual art. For many days, the young man dreamed about it, and gradually his ambition became an all-absorbing, dominating obsession in his consciousness. In every spare moment, he sought out other specimens of this exquisite art. In the process, he visited art galleries, studied books about nature photography, read magazines about special effects photography, and took evening classes in photography, determined to pursue this dream and ambition. Everywhere about him, especially in nature, he saw scenes that he felt would be worthy of reproduction. If he could only discover or learn this special process, his heightened awareness of the beauty in nature that might be reproduced through this unique process excited him to further exploration. He was always alert for some possible clue that might lead him to discover some description of the secret photographic method that would reproduce such beauty. Every conscious moment was centered upon doing those things, learning those things, thinking those thoughts, and arranging those thoughts that would bring him nearer to his ambition. He thoroughly investigated all possibilities. He thought photography, dreamed photography, and acted photography. He was concentrating, in the true sense of the word, upon what he wanted. And there was no mystical, secret principle about his concentration so far as he knew. Unaware of any doubts or psychological impediments as to why he might not succeed on this chosen path, the young photographer in training did not waste time consulting fortune tellers or crystal gazers to find out whether he would ever be successful in materializing his dream. He had no question in his mind or doubt in his consciousness that he had selected the right course of action in his life and that it would be realized. Eventually, his great desire and concentration led him to locate the master photographer who had brought the first specimens to the studio. Since the young man was now a serious student of photography, he found reason to call on this man in a professional way with other matters connected with the art. He called at a time of day when the photographer was working in his studio. In hurried interviews with the photographer, the young man's eyes registered everything within sight. With that keenness that comes through real concentration, he noticed names on instruments, imprints on catalogs, and other details in the photographer's workroom. Later, he hurried to art stores and photography supply outlets, where he purchased similar instruments and other things little by little as his means afforded. He experimented with the process by following the very brief and almost enigmatic instructions that accompanied everything he bought. And eventually, through meditation, concentration, and inspiration, there seemed to come to him shafts of light in the form of bits of wisdom that informed him, as if intuitively, how to experiment and what to do. The result of all this effort and inspiration were small, crude specimens of pictures that were far from being admirable, but were nevertheless unique in their process. Finally, the young photography student took several specimens of his work to the master photographer who knew the whole art. The photographer was so astounded at the youth's discovery of part of the secret process of this hidden art that he unintentionally, perhaps, or diplomatically, told the young man that he had made some errors and why his work was not exactly as it should be. This led to further experiments that produced better results, which he again shared with the master photographer, who came to appreciate the young man's enthusiasm and obvious artistic talents. Impressed by this young person's enthusiasm and determination to discover and refine this special photographic process, the master photographer asked him to become his assistant, an apprentice in the craft, so that he could further instruct him in the special process that was a dream come true for the young photography student. And within a year, his success in this effort and the application of all he was learning was bringing him a good income and recognition in the world of art photography that was unusual for one so young. And within another year, his dreams and hopes were being fulfilled abundantly. Concentration did it, but it was not the form of concentration that is taught in the course of 5 easy lessons, nor learned in an expensive paperback book on how to concentrate upon the abundant supply for your needs. The Rosicrucians know that to truly concentrate means to have one absorbing idea at a time and to think of it to the exclusion of everything else, and then let your entire life, for the time being, cooperate with your concentration to bring it into realization, the thing that you desire. This does not mean that to concentrate successfully, dreamers or thinkers must remove themselves from their professions, businesses, duties, or obligations, and to isolate themselves in the proverbial cave or mountaintop, where they can do nothing else but think and meditate upon that one desire. Such would surely frustrate every possibility of fulfillment. Nor does it mean that concentration should be indulged in only when the mind is free and the body is at rest, before the fireside in the evening or upon retiring at night. It means concentration in every possible moment of relaxation from the duties at hand. It means sacrificing every other thought that is not productive or essential. It means devoting every spare moment and every moment that is not absolutely necessary to life and its duties. It involves forsaking the pleasures and temptations and the casual things of life for more profound and more extended thought upon the one's desire. It takes time, for it requires time. It means effort, for it requires mental activity, not passivity. It involves action, for it cannot be associated with relaxation and dormancy of the faculties. It requires faith and confidence, for the elements of doubt and suspicion will frustrate every possibility of fulfillment. As we proceed with these little talks in the next chapters, the art of proper concentration will be made plain and more practical. One of the most important principles, however, which must be understood and brought into use before concentration becomes useful, is that of mental alchemy. The Rosicrucians of the past were well known as preeminent alchemists. Not only have they been credited with having succeeded in making pure gold out of dross metals, and thereby bringing into realization one of their fond dreams, but it has been conceded that the Rosicrucian art, with its usual teachings and knowledge, enables its students and adepts alchemically to bring into materialization everything that they can mentally conceive and create in imagination. Thus they were proficient in the art of mental alchemy, as well as the alchemy of the crucible and physical alchemy. Among all creatures, we have within our beings creative powers that are a part of the God consciousness. Thus, human beings are uniquely endowed. We have the rare privilege and ability to concentrate and create mentally that which we desire to create eventually in material form. In this process of mentally conceiving and mentally creating, humans are the equal in some degree to God, since it is a God-given privilege for humans to use the creative power which brought into existence in this universe all that is. But the art of mentally creating is little understood in the Western world, and is practiced almost exclusively by those adepts who are often considered to be the white magicians of this earth. I say they are considered the white magicians, for their magic is white magic, free from evil and free from any destructive nature, as the power that they use is part of the creative power of the God consciousness, and this creative power is incapable of creating that which is evil or that which is destructive. The undeveloped or unevolved mind may conceive of evil and of things destructive, but we cannot mentally create or bring these things into materialization in the mystical manner by which good and constructive things will come into material form when created by the cosmic power in the mind. When we conceive of that which is not good and seek to bring it from our mind into material form, we must labor with the grossly material elements and bring them into irrational, illogical, and unnatural relationship in order to make them manifest as evil in the material realm. But when we conceive of that which is good and constructive, we may mentally create it through the alchemical processes of our mind in attunement with the alchemical processes of the cosmos. And as a result of such attunement, the thing created will sooner or later become manifest outwardly through the creative processes existing within our consciousness and our being. It is therefore only necessary when seeking an improvement in our environment, an answer to our needs, or a beneficent item added to our possessions, to mentally create the thing we desire through concentration and mental visualization. We should do this day by day, hour by hour, whenever time permits, until the thing conceived of and in the process of creation becomes a living, vital, vibrating thing in our consciousness. It must become so real that its reality is omnipresent and so effectual in its existence that it modifies, controls, directs, and influences our thinking, acting, and living. Such a mental creation soon ceases to appear to be a thing of the mind alone. When the eyes are closed, it is clearly seen. When the mind is in relaxation, it takes possession of our being. It is ever present in all of its forms, color, size, weight, and power. Regardless of its nature, it is like the unborn in the womb of its mother, ready for delivery into this material world. All things that God created were first conceived by God in this manner. All things that materialize on this earth are blessings for humanity and contributions to our essential needs were alchemically created in the cosmic before their existence was projected into the material form on this earth plane. We must therefore exemplify and emulate the cosmic processes and the divine scheme. We cannot materialize into this world that which we have conceived without the proper process of maturing development. In my experience with business people, firms, boards of directors, and corporations that have labored incorrectly and therefore unsuccessfully with great plans or important matters, I have found that what they desired to bring about had not been properly conceived in the first place. Seeds that are lacking in consistent relationship, or which are unimportant in nature, inharmonious in vibration, or the offspring of evil parents cannot be brought together to effect a perfect conception or to vitalize an idea. And I have found that even where the conception was complete and more or less perfect in every requisite, there had been no period for proper gestation and no logical, natural course of development to bring the conception into a living, vibrant form for final expression. It is fortunate, indeed, that all our passing conceptions and all our mental images do not take form and parade about us to enslave us and clutter the world with misconceived ideas. It is fortunate that only those things can come into being, into concrete and material realization that has been carefully synthesized and developed in the crucible of mental laboratory of divine consciousness. However, because there is the element of time and this necessity for proper development and maturity, individuals become impatient and seek shorter methods and easier ways to bring their dreams and desires into fulfillment. In this, they most surely fail, and through such failure lose faith and confidence and dethrone the creative power within as a pretender. It is not difficult for the human mind to visualize in all of its details that which the mind can conceive as a thing desired. It must be done through the concentration of the objective faculties and the use of the willpower directed from the outer self inwardly, as though there were within the human consciousness a sanctum for the preparation and creation of all things desired by us. Little by little, part by part, element by element, the thing must be put together in its visualized form, and after each edition of each stage of development it must be examined, tested, and tried to discover if any element has been overlooked, any part neglected, or any adjustment or association of parts and elements wrongly made. As one would build a house by constructing the walls brick by brick, so each part of the thing desired must be mentally created and visualized until it is ready to burst forth in its completed state and stand in the consciousness of the Creator as a thing actually existing and in our possession. So much for mental alchemy, the art of mentally creating and visualizing the thing desired. Nothing pertaining to the desire must be overlooked. One must keep in mind the usefulness of the thing desired. One must avoid attempting to create that which has no practical use and which will bring neither profit nor benefit to anyone. The dangers from its misuse must be considered and guarded against during the process of creating. Its benefits to others must be included, and it must be so created that it cannot fail to be useful to others and to be of benefit generally to humanity. It must be so created, or of such a nature, that when it comes into final manifestation objectively, it will become no charge upon the happiness, peace, health, and contentment of others, nor carry within it the sacrifices and sorrows of others. It must be desired with as little selfishness as is consistent with the need of the thing. Its possession must be inspired by no motive associated with revenge or anger, hatred or jealousy, pride or arrogance. Its development and growing reality in the consciousness of its creator should occasionally inculcate a sense of humility and humbleness, for as it comes into form, the magnificence of humanity's creative powers should make the creator of each thing realize one's obligation to God and one's attunement with God's kingdom. If all of these things are considered and made a part of the process, then truly one may feel that success and satisfying realization are imminent and assured. So what we can take from these two powerful chapters from the book Rosicrucian Principles for the Home and Business is that a key fundamental part of manifesting your reality and actually seeing it be realized from your mental dreams and hopes is concentration. And a very specific difference is made here between the manifesting of dreams, just thinking about your dreams, and turning that dream into reality. As they state, there's a considerable difference between concentrating upon a dream or hope and concentrating upon building that dream into realization. This difference is discussed in reality transurfing, and it is an ancient secret to reality creation. Yes, we are absolutely taught by Neville Goddard and Joseph Murphy and many other law of attraction teachers to live in the end, to go to the very end of the process, and this is an important part of manifesting your reality. But it is not the only part. Part of this process then is to concentrate on building that dream into a realization. There is a process involved. So if you want to imagine yourself being a judge, but you have never been to school, then you would imagine finishing school, going to law school, getting your law degree, and each of those steps, you would imagine them. Getting a good grade on your LSAT, going through the different classes, getting good grades each year, passing your finals, and each step, you are using your visualization and your mental alchemy. What they are talking about is what I will call obsessive concentration. And I have found this to be true in my life. I'm sure that you have as well. When you get completely obsessed on one thing, one idea, beyond all other ideas, that you can't think of anything else. In your free time, when you're relaxed, that is what you're thinking about. Yes, you can have your job, you can do your thing, but in your free time, this is all that you're thinking about. You think about it, you breathe it, you read about it, you talk to the experts, you communicate with people that do that thing, you become it. You become so obsessed with it that that is all that you think about. When I started my YouTube channel, that's exactly what I did. I watched YouTube videos all the time and talked to people that had YouTube channels and read books about it and did everything in my power. I thought about it. I breathed it. I continue to do that because I love it and I'm interested in it. It's a beautiful art form. And if you do that, if you let go, now there is a difference between obsessing about something and then you make things important. This state of obsessive concentration is beyond importance. You have absolute and utter faith that this thing will happen. You're not questioning whether or not it will happen, which is what is happening with importance. You're putting all of your hopes for a certain result in a thing, and it doesn't happen, and then there is an exchange of energy up and down. You just know this is going to happen. You're putting your attention and energy into its fulfillment and the process of its fulfillment. It's easier to reduce importance when you focus on the process. It's a little bit harder when you focus on the end and you continue to focus on the end and it doesn't come about. Then there's this spark within you that says this is important and it's not happening, and you start to question its manifestation. Obsessive concentration. Concentrating completely on a subject, reading about it, listening to everything on it, watching everything on it. If you listen to the episode on the ancient secret to the law of assumption, we get a Rosicrucian explanation to the law of assumption as it is taught by Neville Goddard. But they teach it as becoming an obsessed actor, where you just simply act out the reality that you want to live day by day, hour by hour. And they use the same wording here. Day by day, hour by hour, you are concentrated on your desire. If it's to be an architect, or to do radio, or to be an actor, whatever it is that you want to do, it is within your grasp, but you have to put the attention energy into it, and all of your attention energy. If you have other thoughts or things that you're working on, forget about them and focus on this one thing with the beaming laser of light, and the intensity of light that you put on that thing will turn it into reality. It's not just about the end, it's about the process. The journey is part of the manifestation. You must be ready to go on this journey. Sometimes it can happen quickly and sometimes slowly. That is the problem in manifesting for lottery wins and that kind of thing, because there is no spirituality to it. It's not a journey. It's an end and no cause or effect involved, no karma involved. You didn't earn that money, it just comes to you out of the blue. So it's a completely different sort of visualization. But when you have dreams, and as they emphasize at the end of this, if those manifestations that you're focusing on are not to help others, then it's not going to work. You got to consider this so it's outside of just you, and it's the thing that you can imagine that will be of assistance to others. It will always bring you prosperity and good. What is it that you're focusing on? Is it just something that you want for yourself that will help no one else but yourself? Or can this unique thing aid and enlighten others? Just ask that question and focus on it. And if you're in that process where you really want something and it's not working, go all out. It's going to happen. Have complete faith that it's going to happen, but put all of your attention energy into it. That means Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, all the time, night and day, when you wake up, whenever there's free time, that is what you're focused on. It is what you're focused on completely. And then that's when the energy starts to flow towards it. This concentration of will in coordination with our mental visualization process and corresponding with the cosmic, in addition to the other lessons that we've learned in utilizing natural laws, is the key. And we can utilize these natural laws in conjunction with absolute concentration on our desire in every way, shape, and form until it flowers as we light this beautiful portion of reality and watch it come into fruition in the outer world. Based on the example they give, I relate to this through art. I had no idea how to paint. I didn't even know what the different kinds of paint were, and I became obsessed with it. I studied and experimented with oils and different kinds of casein paints, and then I discovered different mediums and uses of paints. I watched every video I could. I listened to Bob Ross and other art teachers, took art classes, went to artists that taught acrylics and different methods and techniques until I started to formulate my own style and plan. It took me several years to do that, and for others it takes them decades, but that's the same process they describe with the photographer. There is a process that is going on, and you need to embrace this process within your manifestation. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. For a further exploration of ancient secrets and Rosicrucian principles, check out the Ancient Secrets playlist. You can support the channel, and I'd love it if you checked out my art at www.newearth.art. I'm sending all my love and light to everyone that is listening. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.